Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode number 171 of the Peak of Serenity podcast. I am, as always, one of your hosts, Emerson, and joining me, we have my co-host, Anomoly.
Hello.
And this week, we've got news, classic news. Patch 10
Some news.
1.7 comes out on Tuesday and comes with some Mistweaver changes, which we talked about a little bit previously on the podcast, but now we get to see them in their final form. So we'll talk about Manatee more at the in the podcast, and then just classic stuff.
Random classic, which I'm playing a surprisingly amount of, or surprising amount of. So yeah, we can definitely get into that.
But before we get into that, how was your raid week?
Whew, I always I'll be completely honest with you, raid weeks nowadays are just melding together. So like I literally, as we're loading up the podcast, had to bring up Warcraft logs. I was like, what did we kill last week?
Yeah.
Trying to remember. So raid week, so we're down. So basically we're at the point, and I think we do this on purpose, is we're only raiding 1 day a week, regardless.
Yeah.
So we basically said whatever we get done on Tuesday, that's our raid week. We let people sort of spread out, do whatever they want for the rest of the week. So we only raid Tuesday, so 1 day for 3.5 hours or so. And we did everything but Magmarax and Zakarn. Sort of ran out of time at the end. And primarily we wiped a lot to Sarkareth. Had a really clean Echo, so I had like Echo in 3 or 4 pulls. But Sarkareth was like 17 wipes, I think, before we killed it.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was rough. I think we started off the night. I think most of those wipes where we had a couple new people, like brand new people in, who were taking some pretty a lot of like the immuning rolls in P3, which I think was our issue last week too. And so a couple still trying to work around that. And then we just had some really stupid plays. Like I think I died twice early to getting the knock in P2 into a black hole. So like not the final knock, but the knock before the final knock, getting knocked into a hole from like the phase 1 stuff we did.
Yep.
And just dying, like not realizing. So of course, like my raid leader's like, man, it would be cool if like monks had like this porting option. I was like, I've done this fight literally for 400 pulls. I've never used my port for that phase. And yeah, maybe that's a bad thing on my part, but like it's not in my like my muscle memory. So yeah, so it's some random stuff. We like lose people randomly early, but no, finally got through it and literally cleared like amalgamation chamber, experiments, the cool assault, and then Rashok in an hour. Really like 45 minutes.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
like
that sounds about like ours.
Yeah, it was just Sarkareth. It just sorry.
We had a very light roster this week, and when I say that, I mean we had exactly 20 people.
Nice.
So everybody that was in for everything. Everything where we didn't want to 5 heal, we needed to have healers play DPS. So
fun.
Thankfully we have several healers that can play good DPS specs, and we were doing the early bosses. So we had people that weren't comfortable on their DPS specs practice them on those, so that the other healers that have better DPS specs weren't just playing them on everything.
That's awesome.
But yeah, it wasn't clear what exactly we were gonna do, how it was gonna go. We got through the first 5 in 40 minutes, and then we're like, okay, we can either go do Neltharion and Sarkareth, or we can go do Skarn and Magmarax. And like, literally nobody said I want to do Skarn, but several people said I would like to do Neltharion and Sarkareth. So because of our comp stuff this week, that actually put us in a situation where we didn't have the immunes required to do the strat we had been doing on Sarkareth, which then pushed us towards doing the 3 heal strat.
Oh, okay.
So the goal was 3 heal, kill the boss at the what is that, the 3rd Cosmic Ascension. That means you do like the first black hole with the externals, the second one is a group soak, the third one we have our immune bait, and that's all the same as our current strat. The only difference is the 4th one is now a group soak, and the 5th one is just they run out and die. They just suicide. And yeah, I mean, it worked. It took all of our raid night basically to get through that. But I am really, really, really pleased that it worked. We ended up killing the boss at 6 minutes 39, which is right before he jumps up for the Cosmic Ascension. Like the animation appears, and then the boss
Yeah.
dies.
Nice.
So yeah, I'm genuinely really, really pleased that that worked out. I still have stuff to figure out. Where we changed our tank stuff around for Sarkareth, I'm now doing the phase 2, phase 3 transition, and also tanking a ton of stuff in phase. I think I talked about this last week, but tanking a ton of stuff in phase 2. I'm finally getting the hang of it. I feel like where I'm not constantly feeling like I need to push all of my cooldowns in phase 2. And some of that is actually also more DPS means the ads don't live as long.
Yeah. Yeah, less dangerous. Yeah, less dangerous overlaps.
So, but finally getting a hand on that, but still dying more than I want to admit. So yeah, but yeah, that was really fun to do that strat. We finished with like 10 minutes left in raid, and somebody suggested we could go to Scar, and there's a resounding no.
Yeah. No, yeah, we yeah, it's just it's a weird raid week. We're also like we have a couple new trials coming in, so it's like I think it'll be interesting. I mean, as long as I think we get down Sarkareth and Echo each week, then I think we're good. So.
We actually had a new trial healer that they had progressed phase 1 and phase 2 of Sarkareth, but basically not touched phase 3. And they were one of our healers for the 3 heal strat.
Oh, geez. Okay, there we go. That's
right
awesome.
into the fire.
Yeah, that is no joke. So,
and that kind of came down to like who could play good DPS off specs, and we had one of our healers is a former DPS main, and so they played Shadow Priest for us on it, and the other is a former Windwalker main and Boomkin main, and they played Augmentation for us. Their main is a Preservation Evoker right now.
Okay, nice.
So, like our other option was like somebody play Ret Paladin, but we wanted a Paladin healer because of they're good and also aura mastery.
Yeah, both solid spells.
Yep. So that kind of pushed us in that direction. So we 3 healed with it was Holy Paladin, Resto Shaman, and Resto Druid.
Okay, that's not terrible. It's a decent comp. Comp. Nice.
Yeah. Looking at
very cool.
Looking at Resto Shaman numbers is very funny. They are very low. But like if either of the other healers had done as little healing, they would have been like single digit parse.
Oh Jesus.
Whereas the rest of Shaman actually got like mid green, close to blue. But Spirit Lake Totem still like all-star, absolute all-star.
Yeah, it's still the best like end of P1 cooldown you can throw. Like it's so strong there. So
I actually wonder. So I didn't assign Ancestral Protection Totem. I wonder if they played APT or Earthen Wall. I didn't actually check.
Oh.
I don't even know where that is on the tree.
I also have no idea.
Maybe they played neither.
I haven't played a Resto Shaman in years. So.
Oh, they played Earthen Wall, yeah.
Nice.
But yeah. So that was our raid week, and we're not raiding tonight. So.
Oh, nice.
Very chill weekend. Yeah.
Very cool. Very nice. Well, that's awesome. Yeah, no, it's sort of in that lull before the next tier where we're just sort of trying to take it easy, not burn people out. Really, is the idea. So, so cool. All right. Well, I think we can get into some of the news for the day. A couple of things hit this week. So first up, of course, Hardcore Classic Realms actually released like before our last, or it was a week ago. So we talked a little bit on the podcast. I am still slowly leveling in Hardcore. I am level 12 on my rogue, taking it extremely slow.
Yeah.
I've had the only near-death experiences I've had is number 1, going into caves and having other people train mobs on top of me. Like that's literally it. It's been I watch, and it's funny. So now, like whenever I go in a cave, I have to do something. So this happened 100% in the first Wendigo cave you have to go in after you leave the
Yes.
starters area. In what's that zone called?
It's not Lac Modan. It's I know it's the dwarf starter area.
Yeah, whatever the zone is outside Ironforge. I always forget the name of it. And so yeah, that's super scary. Almost died there a couple times, and then yeah, there's the other cave across it where like the flight people, or not the flight people, but there's like a air showing you like go down into like a quarry or whatever. And there's a cave there with some trogs that is a little, also a little sketchy. But no,
Yeah.
it's been fun. Sort of doing that. But me being level 12, I'm close, and I was probably on the leaderboard somewhere for the race for World First Classic.
Oh,
But
sure.
no, we did have a person hit 60, first person to hit 60 in Hardcore Classic. It was Vitochi, I believe is how you pronounce their name.
Your guess is as good as mine.
Yeah, so Vitochi did it on a mage, hit level 60 after 69 hours and 53 minutes of played time, which is always forget how many hours it takes to.
And this is
Uh,
so they talked a little bit about how they did it,
yeah.
how they got first, and basically, so they're playing a mage. They did not take the safe route. They did not do the thing
No.
where you like pull them up at the time. You know, you play safe, you play the long game. They were AoE farming, like actual classic AoE farming, like people do in the actual classic servers, where it's okay to die and you just go back to the spirit, you know, from the spirit healer and pick up your corpse, like doing that on hardcore. And it's kind of a miracle that they didn't die.
Oh yeah, 100%, 100%. So yeah, no, they did it. They did it the AoE farming way. Hit 60 first. It was them and like I think two other people were close. Um,
So there
Another mate.
were at the point they hit 60, sorry. There were two people at the top of the leaderboard, themselves and another mage, that were
Mhm.
like close-ish. Like the leaderboard doesn't update instantly. So they
Mhm.
were listed as 59. The other one was listed as 57, and the next one after that is a rogue at level 53.
Yeah.
To give you a sense of like how big that gap is.
And I believe someone. I don't know if it was. I thought there was a hunter up there too, but maybe it wasn't a hunter. But I know there was another person, probably in like the mid 50s, that died.
Yeah,
Like mid that week
yeah. I
to
think I
like a
was online
disconnect
when that
actually.
happens.
Yeah. So I mean, it's rough, but no, yeah, classic is alive, and or at least classic hardcore alive and well. It's a super cool piece. So
Yeah,
um
I will say, staying up late playing classic, not the greatest way to do hardcore and survive. Can
oh no.
Yep. Um, Sometimes you just lose for no real reason. Like I had a druid, I got to level 12. I was fighting a thresher next to Darkshore,
Okay.
and like, well, for one thing, you're in the water, so you can't run away.
Yep.
Um, and just like crushing blow to death.
Really? That's rough.
Like
That's rough.
crushing blows do a very large amount of damage compared to
Hmm.
like your total health bar. So like I'm sitting there like gonna use a potion after the next hit hits me, and it's just like a crushing blow, and I lose 20% of my health and die.
Yeah, you just fall over. There's like
Yeah,
no winning there.
yeah.
Yeah.
So that was very frustrating.
Yeah. No, yeah, hardcore can be rough leveling up, and yeah, you definitely have to pay attention, I think, to stuff like that. So, but yeah, luckily me and the little rogue, we're slowly but surely making our way to 60. We might hit it soon, so I doubt it. Maybe before the end of the year. That might be the goal.
The goal is to hit
Um,
60 before they shut down the servers.
actually that's honestly the real goal. That's honestly the real goal. But cool, yes, that's classic classic hardcore. I mean, I think it's a really cool mode. I've had a couple of friends who it's funny, they've played WoW in the past, but they have come back to try hardcore. Like they don't play regularly at all nowadays, but the idea of like playing a hardcore WoW sort of grind seems interesting to them. They're also big into like just ARPGs in general,
Yeah,
so they have that sort of like hardcore itch, I'll say. But no, yeah, some fun times happening there.
I would love to
Um,
see. I would love to see. This is a little bit toxic. I would love to see the numbers of classic hardcore compared to Diablo 4.
That is extremely toxic. But I would say, I mean, honestly, comparable. I would say they're comparable.
I see
In
more,
terms of the amount
and
of
like,
players.
obviously my friends list is biased, right? Because my friends list is all people from WoW, but I see more people on Classic Hardcore than I see on D4 right now.
Yeah. I mean, I would say like I have a couple. Yeah, again, I have a couple friends who they're a part of like their names are on the statue. So with the little
Oh,
statue for the first
yeah,
1,000 players to reach max with um in hardcore, and like they literally that's the last time they've played is they hit whatever max level is and
yeah,
like kind of quit after that. So
yeah.
um but cool, yeah. But that's a little classic update. I think we have another little one in a bit. Talking about Wrath, but
You want to
real quick,
just skip to that right now,
actually,
and then we'll
yeah,
do
we
all
could
the
just skip to
retail
that.
stuff?
That probably makes sense. So Wrath Classic, they released the PTR development notes. So PTR came up. They started doing tests for ICC, which is out, of course, with this next patch. But the one thing I wanted to sort of highlight from this, so not really going too in depth about ICC, and I am still playing Wrath, still doing TOGC grinding. It's a lot of fun, but they did make a huge section of these patch notes about the Shadowmourne legendary quest. So if you're not
Yeah,
familiar, Shadowmourne was the legendary weapon that came with ICC. And if you're not familiar with the way legendary weapons worked in older versions of WoW, generally it was like you need to kill bosses to get drops, and if you got enough drops, you can complete like a quest. So it was very RNG based, like not heavily RNG based, but it was RNG in getting your drops. And then once you got enough, you could then craft your Shadowmourne after doing a couple other things too. And so the longest part of this was getting the drops. They weren't guaranteed. I think maybe Heroic Lich King guaranteed drop one back then, but in general, it was
yeah,
you kind of had to hope to get it. Valinir, which is the legendary healing mace that came from Ulduar, also similar idea of like you needed random drops to basically complete a portion of the quest. So what they're doing, just to give you a little background, what they're doing is they're actually greatly increasing the drop rate of the Shadow Frost shards, which is what you need to collect to create or start the one step within the quest to create Shadowmourne. They're greatly increasing the drop rate, and basically each end boss. So the way that ICC set out, there's 4 Endwing bosses plus the Lich King. The 5 bosses basically will guaranteed drop a shard on either 25 normal or heroic difficulty. So no need to do that. Um, and then they're increasing the drop rate just in general. And the idea is basically to get more Shadowmourns in people's hands so you can have more fun, because if you get the really strong legendary item, you do more damage, it's a lot more fun. And in my mind, this goes, I mentioned this a while ago, or a couple episodes ago, about why I like raiding in Classic, is that it's kind of like comp stomp modes. If you ever played like an RTS game where like it's you
yeah,
and your buddies and you're playing against a computer, the computers are not very good. And so there's a little bit of a challenge there. Like you can't totally turn your brain off, but eventually you will win no matter what you do.
yeah.
Or you can go like mass Marines and you'll win because the computer won't know what to do with it. And that's what raiding in IC in Wrath Classics like to me. And to be fair, like this sort of supports that is with it, which is the idea. Like they want you to have fun and get the items and like have a good time. They don't want you to have to like grind or have a bunch of hurdles to do stuff, which is a just a different, I think, concept than like retail is,
They
right?
also like they brought up the fact that original ICC was a year long, basically.
Yeah.
I don't think they're planning on this ICC lasting a year. That's
No.
their cadence of classic patches has generally been a lot higher. Um, but the original drop rates for Shadowmourne put you at 4 to 6 months to complete a single Shadowmourne. And so this change also means that instead of it being 4 to 6 months, I don't know if they give a number on the expected value, but it's going to be significantly short. Oh, they do 8 to 10 weeks, so around 2 months to
Yeah.
complete it. Which means that if ICC, like the comparison is if ICC is 4 months long, it's the same amount of time relative to the length of the tier. Um,
Hmm.
I suspect it might be a little bit longer than that because we still don't
Yeah.
know what's happening after Wrath Classic. Um, I think a lot of people are guessing we're going to find out at BlizzCon this year, which is in a couple of months.
Yeah.
But ICC probably comes out before then because they put the PTR up, now.
Yeah. Yeah. I think ICC in like October-ish makes the most sense. Somewhere in there, like right before BlizzCon, and then you can go to BlizzCon and enjoy it. So But yeah, no, it's cool that they're doing this. They're also, as a part of this, just as I mean, if people care, they're also upping the drop rate of the fragments you need for Valanair, which is the legendary mace out of Old War. So they're upping that drop rate too, um,
Yeah.
with this patch, which is cool. So I mean, it's nice to see like I don't know, it's nice to see Blizzard taking the more fun approach to this stuff versus like
Yeah.
keeping it as traditional. So
Yeah.
um,
I agree with that. I agree with that.
I mean, the people, and it's funny, like being in this guild that I raid in or whatever, and hearing them talk about the game. It's like it's a bunch of people who just like want just do it for the nostalgia versus like the challenge or like
Yeah.
they're not trying to like recreate. Oh, ICC was so hard. Let's go back to the way it was back then. It's like, man, I
Although,
rated this when I was like 10 years ago, and now I get to go back. So
although, I don't
it's
think
true.
that there are. So PTR for ICC was up this week. I don't think there were any Lich King kills.
There were not that I saw. Although I think the reason for that though is Putricide was bugged. Where like to kill
Oh,
Putricide, you had to do some like really wonky stuff.
I see. I
Um,
see.
so I think there was a couple of bugs with the bosses that didn't allow Lich King to be opened up. But
Yeah,
um,
that's fair. The other
yeah.
thing that I was going to bring up is they intentionally left like Ulduar gear on the vendors, or
Hmm.
Ulduar slash TOC gear on the vendors. So this is like previous tier gear. Normally, when you go on PTR, they give you like, well, like in retail, it's current tier heroic gear. I'm guessing for ICC, it would be like ICC normal gear,
Yeah.
to test heroic. Um, but this is basically seeing what people can do with the gear that they've got on live.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. So
Which
it was a good test, I think, of like the what the difficulty looks like. And I mean it seems pretty standard. I read a couple of like watch a couple of people play and give like their review of like difficulty and how hard it is. And it didn't seem I mean, I think ICC is one of the first steps into like what a modern WoW raid looks like in terms of like the type of
people were
mechanics
saying
you'll
that
get.
about Ulduar, though.
Yeah, I mean I think
We said
Ulduar
that
is
about
that
Ulduar, I'm pretty sure,
yeah,
actually.
but Ulduar, having actually done Ulduar now, it's like one boss is like that, and
Yeah.
that's Yogg. Like,
Yeah.
right? Like, I think actually having done it and like going back and actually doing the fights, like even Mimiron for like the people who talk about Firefighter being like super hard and everything like that, like the actual mechanics of Mimiron are like super basic. Um, like I did most of that and even TOGC as like not remembering anything and just people being like, okay, you have a debuff now that drops fire. Don't stand in it. I was like, okay, well, I think I can handle that.
Yeah.
Or like
Yeah.
you need to heal this debuff, and like like the two that's literally Lord Jiraxis. There's two mechanics. It's like
Yeah.
don't walk over fire and heal debuff before it expires. And it's like, okay, well, it can't get any simpler. So
Like
yeah, maybe I mean
kind of
maybe
on
I
that note, like
oh,
people made a big deal about Anubarak tanking stuff for like Warcraft logs.
yeah.
Because of the fact that, you people were like 3 tanking this fight. And you had like 2 different off tanks, basically both tanking the burrowers, while the
Mhm.
main tank tanks Anub. And so we had this kind of complicated setup for like tank spec detection, and everything looked great on launch. And then like 2 weeks in, we are starting to get complaints that unholy DKs are getting marked as tanks because people just aren't tanking the burrowers. They
Yeah.
just let them hit people.
Yeah. Yeah. No,
And the unholy DKs do the most damage, so they get threat.
yeah, it's wild. Yeah. Yeah, we're still working on Heroic and Noob, but no, yeah, the fights are not that difficult at all. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how ICC plays out. I mean, I think there's gonna be some like really easy fights in there, but I hopefully the end bosses of each of the wings was somewhat difficult, right? Like Syndragosa, Putricide,
Yeah.
whatever the Blood Queen's name is, and uh that's all 4, right? Yeah. Yeah. So but yeah, that's the classic notes are out there. Check them out. I mean the drop rate thing I think is the coolest part of it. Oh, and then because I play a hunter, I can't let this go. They're adding trap launcher for immolation trap, which means I no longer have to run in and out of melee as a hunter
Yes.
and drop traps, which is awesome. So So cool. And I think the other sort of classic news, really final classic piece, so we can stop being a classic podcast for a little bit, is Radar.io did get access to or I guess not access, but Blizzard released their classic API. And so Radar.io has put together a couple of pages and character updates for classic. So you can load your characters up, see their gear, use a handful of the Radar.io features now that they have that that API up and can grab stuff. So
Yeah, and so this is only for actual classic. This is not Wrath, not yet at least. Which is like, we looked at this for Warcraft log stuff, and I think that was our note, was like, this is not for Wrath Classic yet, but we should be keeping our eye on this, because when it is, that actually solves a lot of the problems for us. Where people right now, in order to claim a character, you have two options. You can upload a log with the character, but you have to have like logged it as the character, or you can go onto the forums and like a post and then synchronize. It's a bit of a mess, but it's
convoluted.
basically reusing the forums API as a character API.
Gotcha. Okay.
And yeah, it's not the greatest. So hopefully, if that comes to Wrath Classic, then we can use that and make it a lot cleaner and nicer for people to be able to claim their classic characters.
That would be good. Yeah, I mean, I think it's always good that Blizzard fleshes out all this API stuff. So, classic API is great. Or I guess it would be like classic era API is what they call it, because just classic is.
Yeah, I don't remember the initial blue post that announced it. I think there was a note that it may come to the others, but yeah, for right now they're like doing it for classic era.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, cool. I think that's it for our retrospective of the classic game. We can start to get into some actual retail news. So a couple of things before we talk about 10.17 and some of the stuff that's happening there. The Secrets of Azeroth event is going on right now. So if you aren't familiar with what this is, it's basically like a daily secrets or like puzzle game or that Blizzard has put out. So basically every day for the next 2 weeks, there is a new sort of puzzle that comes out, or yeah, I guess, yeah, or secret. And you basically have to decipher what the secret is, and you sort of get an achievement. And I think by doing the entire event, you can get a bunch of stuff. Like, I think there's a mount in there.
Yep.
There's a pet. There's some transmog stuff, a couple of random toys, like a thinking cap and like a torch you can run around with. So yeah, so if you want to sort of be Sherlock Holmes essentially, and look through this secret stuff, that event is live. I, for one, love stuff like this. I think this is a little bit more structured than I wanted, because basically like every day a new like clue comes out and you can like progress it, so you know exactly where to go and who to pick it up from. But I do really enjoy these like sort of like secret events that show up, and watching the community come together to like figure it out. It's cool. So
it's a really big shift from a lot of the previous ones, where it's been no word. It's just like, hey, there's something in data mining, so we know this exists.
Yeah.
And then there's people just like, it's just the million monkeys pushing all the buttons in Azeroth, figuring out how to unlock the thing. Versus this is like, instead of it being like potentially weeks for like thousands and thousands of people to work out how to get something, this is more like, okay, we're going to clue you in that this is happening, and we expect every one of these hints to get worked out in a day.
Yeah, exactly. So it's not like super hard, like secret wise, but it is cool. Also the event, like you can still get the rewards after the event is over. I think it's going to stay live. I don't know if they said indefinitely, but at least for a couple, days or weeks after the event ends, and you can just catch up. Basically, if you started it today, haven't done anything, you'll start on day 1.
Yeah,
and you'll be able to progress up to, I think today is day 4. And the clues come out at noon Pacific time. I want to say somewhere around there.
I haven't touched it. So
yeah, but you can catch up until whatever the current day is. You don't have to wait and only do one a day.
That's probably how I'll do it. Is
wait till the end.
Yeah, that's how I do TV shows too. Is I wait until they're done and then I watch them.
Yeah,
Or most of the time. Sometimes I don't.
Yeah, so I did the day 1 stuff. I didn't or day 1 and day 2 stuff, and now I'm on day 3, but day 4 comes out today
Yeah.
which this is Sunday, the September 3rd. So yeah, the day 4 stuff comes out today, which is cool. But secret event, I think this stuff is cool. I'll never figure it out, so like I'll go to some website, give me a guide, or go to the secrets Discord,
Yeah.
and I'll click the buttons in the right order, but it's cool. It's a cool little puzzle thing going on. And yeah, this is just a cool like just get out in the world event, which I think is what they've talked about doing. With this X Pack, and they haven't really done much of this in the past. At least structured like this. I guess they have done individual secrets. Um, so cool. So then next up is we did get a second encrypted vendor patch pushed this week for 10.2, which means 10.2 well under development, which we'd already expected that. But yeah, another vendor patch went out, which basically means I would assume PTR is close. If not this week after 10.1.7 goes live, I would say almost guaranteed the week after. So
Yeah.
within the next 2 weeks, we should be able to jump on 10.2 PTR, see what's changed, see what's out there, see what we get ourselves into. So, but yeah, vendor patches getting pushed. Love to hear that. Love to see that. So cool. The other thing coming out of retail, just as a bit of an aside here, is we have the WoW token prices just skyrocketing in value, at least on retail.
Yeah.
With them, I think that their highest levels ever, like EU broke 400,000, I think for the first time.
Yeah.
NA is over 300,000, which I think that's still a record. So yeah, they're skyrocketing. No one really knows why. I would suspect. Sorry.
Well, there's a couple things I think. One of them is you can get tokens in Classic now.
Yeah.
You've been able to for a few months, and you can kind of see a trend line starting to go up at the point that that becomes available.
Yeah.
The other thing is, um, like the previous peak was in Legion at the end of Legion, at what was probably the previous high point of the game,
Exactly.
or at least the previous
Exactly.
high point since the tokens were released. And you can, I broke my stream setup, so I can't pull it up on stream. But there's a very visible drop at what I'm only going to call the beginning of battle for Azeroth in token price.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it never really recovered until I mean, it kind of recovered towards the end of Shadowlands, and then it didn't really recover until actual Dragonflight.
Yeah. And I also forget too. So the other thing is, I think is there a virtual ticket this year for BlizzCon?
Yes, there is.
Because that's typically when it also spikes. Is
Yeah.
is like people will sort of use funds to do that. And you're right too. I mean, the idea of like can you transfer tokens to Classic? Like if you buy
No.
them with okay. So you'd have to
I
buy
actually
the
wonder if
token with
is the pool separate. I don't actually know how Classic tokens work. If it's a completely separate pool or what.
Yeah, I don't think you could mail them. And the token that you buy isn't for money, it's for game time, right? Like you either buy the token with gold. Because I think when you mentioned that, I thought you were talking about like transferring gold from like retail into Classic,
I
but I
know
don't
they
think you can do
added.
that.
Yeah, I know they added WoW tokens, and I don't know what. It doesn't look like these sites actually track the Classic token price.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
I think it's entirely separate. I don't believe you can send a regular token over to Classic. So
yeah.
But if you could, that's an easy way to
I mean,
to trade or
you
swap
could
gold.
turn like retail gold into BlizzBucks and then turn that into Classic tokens.
That's true. That's true. That is true. Maybe I should do that. I need a whatchamacallit, a trinket and buy one off the AH. Maybe I'll make a little
You need a
transfer.
GDKP run. Is that what I'm hearing?
Oh God, no. No, I tried to join one, and they were like, "Your item level's too low," and I was like, they're like, "What are you willing to spend?" I was like, "I have 1,000 gold." They're like, "The minimum bid for items is 750." I'm like, "So you mean I can bid on one item?" They're like, "We're not bringing you." I'm like, "All right, well, my
Oh,
bad." Uh,
uh, get them
so
done.
I know I got screwed. But yeah, interesting. I wonder if you could. Maybe I'll do that. We'll have to invest. I'll report back next week on my token
Report back.
adventures between
Report back.
Wrath and retail. So cool. Yeah, that's. I mean, like I said, that's all the news. Actually, there's not. We're grasping at straws here for some news in this game. So
Well,
it's
well,
been a little
we
rough.
we have some patch 10.1.7 news. Obviously, we mentioned at the top of the podcast that comes out this week. And uh I don't want to go through like all the features. There's a bunch of world content. There's the ping system, which we talked about at length. Get ready to get another keybind. Good luck,
So
brewmasters.
excited. So
And
excited for that.
yeah, ping system. Then there's more like world events, stream surges, Night Elf Heritage Armor, also Forsaken, but who cares about them? So listen,
My
one of
my
these
main is undead.
one of these looks good and I like the iconic Night Elf look, and the other one no.
Okay,
The
looks
the
like a
the
cemetery.
iconic undead like Forsaken look is like level 1 undead armor. That's what
Oh, I
that's
agree with like this, the
yeah.
flesh and the bones sticking out.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah,
This is not that. It's not even close to that. Like sure it looks neat. Yeah, have fun with it, but it's not the same.
I would agree. Yeah, it's a little rough in that regard. Um,
Um but then as part of the patch, of course, there are class changes, and
mhm.
notably, uh there are changes for monks. You want to talk about the
Yeah.
Mistweaver stuff?
Yeah, so we did an episode a couple weeks ago on the changes, and we were still doing a bunch of testing. So the major change, there's been a lot of movement in our talent tree again with this patch. So a couple of different talents have moved positions, and some notable things have been removed, and some notable things have been added. So the first thing is they've removed Spirit of the Crane from the talent tree, which was, of course, the mana return whenever you utilize Teachings of the Monastery stacks, which is the ability where if you Tiger Palm, you get stacks, and when you Blackout Kick and use those stacks, those additional stacks you used would be turned into mana. I believe the value was like 0.65% of your mana was returned for each stack you consumed.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, so that has been removed, and the team has added in Manatee with a couple of different things added to it. So there's a redesign of lifestyles, life cycles, which basically makes your Vivify cause your next Rising Sun kick or Enveloping Mist to generate a stack of Manatee at a higher percentage, and then vice versa. Your Enveloping Mist and Rising Sun kicks give your Vivify a increased chance to generate a Manatee stack. So it's a nice sort of back and forth interaction from life cycles, which will be good. And then there's also like it's going to be a choice node, but you can channel Manatee faster and generate more mana is the second option. No, when we talked about Manatee at the time, it functions much like older Manatee did in like WAD and even previously MOP, which is it becomes a channel where you get stacks of Manatee up to 20, I believe is the max. And you then consume those stacks through the use of a channel where you consume one stack every 0.5 seconds and you will generate 3,000 mana or regenerate 3,000 mana for each stack you consume. So you can, if you channel this for 1 second, you'll generate 6,000 mana and consume two stacks. That's sort of the idea. It is cast while moving, which is great, but you do have reduced movement speed while you're channeling, so you can sort of kind of move. And also, for every stack of manatee that you consume, you gain 1 second of mana cost reduction after you end the channel. The idea is if you channel it for 4 seconds, we'll say, you gain 4 seconds of manatee reduction after you end the channel. Essentially, it's a 50% reduction. So it's sort of like the old manatee, integrated into it.
So you could channel this immediately before your big ramp and just have old manatee and also regenerate a bunch of mana.
Yep, exactly. And you're not gonna so there's gonna be a couple of interesting gameplay places where you're not gonna want to channel it for very long. You're basically going to channel it enough to get that reduction on a single spell. So whether that's like
Interesting.
Essence Font or like the start of your ramp, because if if you still play Clouded Focus, the entry point into it, you'll want two things from it. Manatee also procs your Forset. So you could use it right before you ramp and then use the reduction to basically game the first enveloping mist that you cast, since our rotation is typically channel soothing mist, hit enveloping mist, then spam a bunch of vivifies. And so you get that reduction of that first enveloping mist. Um, but yeah, a couple things have changed since we tested. So at the time, Manatee Channel was unhasted, and it always procced your four piece, which basically had a very degenerate playstyle where every 8 seconds you would hit Manatee for half a second and have permanent uptime of the four piece,
Oh
or I guess
no.
6 seconds. So they've made a couple of changes. So we did some testing was done this week as we come into like the final week of PTR, and some things have changed. So namely, the Manatee channel is now hasted, meaning that like as a percentage of your haste, you will have a reduced channel time, which means you get mana. You will consume stacks just slightly quicker. You don't
So,
gain any more mana. You just can get through the channel quicker.
well, it's kind of a neat counterpoint to one of the things that makes haste kind of awkward sometimes for healers is that haste lets you spend your mana faster, but it
Uh-huh.
doesn't generally let you get your mana back faster. This does actually let you get your mana back faster.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's definitely a good change. It feels a little bit better. The other thing too is they've put an internal cooldown on how often Manatee can proc your set. It's now
Okay.
once every 10 seconds. So you have a little bit of leeway in how you use it, or when you use it. You don't have to be spamming it out. So two really good changes, I'll say. Um, I think the preliminary napkin math from Swaggles has this at like a 1.5 to 2% increase in overall healing. So it's not. I mean, it's a solid amount of more healing. You will want to take this spell. But again, as long as two piece exists in the current game, you won't be using Manatee for the mana return. You'll be using it for a slight reduction and to be easily proc your four piece.
Oh my gosh.
Um, so
Um,
yeah, two
so
piece is just too strong. So
do you think you'll be using that two piece next year unless they come out with an even more, or I guess nerf it?
yeah, I mean, I would. So I've thought a little bit about this. I think it ends up getting nerfed probably as the patch goes live. Yeah, I mean, I could see you using like yeah two pieces even in well, it would depend on how strong four piece is for next year, what exactly the four piece bonus
Yeah.
is.
Okay.
But I mean, at least in terms of like mana regeneration, like the two piece will continue to be really strong. So you might end up like not breaking two piece until you can fully equip four piece next year if they don't make any changes to it.
Yeah. I mean, that's
Yeah,
not the
which
end
is
of the world.
no. It's been. I mean, but to be fair, it's been a while since we've cared about like set bonuses like that as much, right? When you're picking up new gear, so
Yeah. I
um,
mean, like enhancement shaman this tier used two piece until they nerfed last tier's two piece.
yeah,
Um. So
that's fair. That's fair. But yeah, it's Manatee is it's good. I mean, it was good to see it come back. Had some degenerative gameplay elements to it. I think now it's in a better spot. The on-demand, proccing four piece is really cool, and the ability to, gain, um, gain mana is awesome. Um, so yeah, no, it's a good handful of changes coming into the game. So I cannot, yeah, I can't wait to mess around with it. It'll be weird to play with this Manatee, since we haven't had anything like this since the Legion rework, which is the
the
last
place where you
time.
got essence font.
Yeah, yeah, that dumb spell, which we don't cast now, which is like honestly what I wanted. So we will hopefully that trend continues, and in 11.0 we get to hear the awesome words of Essence Font has been removed from the game, because I've literally wanted to be removed from the game since it came out.
Here's a fun question: Have
Yeah.
has Mistweaver had essence font for longer than it hasn't had essence font?
Oh, that's a good question. I would
Because they
almost
got it
say
in Legion.
yeah. I mean, yeah, because it would. So MOP, well,
MOP WAD versus Legion, BFA, and Shadowlands, and
yeah,
part of
no.
Dragonflight. It's got to
Yeah, no,
be,
yeah, we've had it longer. No,
yeah.
100%. Yeah. I was trying to say like, well, like WAD, like Siege of Orgrimmar was like a year plus long tier, but even with that, you have 3.5 expansions
Yeah.
basically worth of Essence font. Yeah, no, it's been here forever, and it's still. I mean, I will say it doesn't have the same power it's had in the past, like with respect to the rest of our kit, which is awesome. But as long as it exists, it like there's always the chance the tuning changes just enough that we go back to spamming or casting that stupid spell.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, no, it's the change. I mean, to be fair, it's like Dragonflight has been awesome in terms of changes, and it's hilarious for us to like to slowly be going back to like the WAD and MOP era style of playing Mistweaver. It's like the weirdest thing to like we get this new manatee, like we've been playing a lot of like clouded like the ramp stuff's a little weird, but like the idea is still the same as it was back then, which is like spread and get as many renewing mists out on the raid as you can. Like that's the goal. And so now we have the like we don't have uplift like we did back in WAD, but we have clouded focus ramps, which are slightly different, but still like the same type of gameplay style, which is cool. I'm definitely a fan, and I think Manatee will be a fun thing. I still like I still am like playing. I have to play with it in progression or like in a raid a lot more because I the reduction seems weird in terms of like you basically have to channel for at least a second to make use of that reduction at all. So you're consuming at least you know 4 stacks, and the reason that is like Manatee still triggers the common GCD when you use it.
Is
So
that,
like
hang on. So, obviously, patch notes can be wrong, would not be the first time, but it says it reduces the cost of your spells by 1 second per stack of manatee
yeah.
consumed. And you consume 1 stack per half second.
Yeah, so if you channel it for a full second, you get 2 seconds of reduction.
Okay.
You'll
And you
still have
have
half a
to,
second GCD, so
yeah.
you basically have to use it right away. So
Yeah.
that's the only
Okay.
weird part about it is like you have to channel for a little bit longer to get the reduction after the GCD. So, but yeah, I mean, other than that, it's you just have to learn how to use it. Maybe the reduction, because I think the reduction ends up being probably the most powerful part of this. Well, I guess the most powerful part is that it procs 4 set, which is good. But like beyond the base spell, if you're not talking about tier interactions, the
Yeah.
reduction is the more powerful part than the mana coming back to you. So it's yeah, it's just it's awkward. Any sort of like I don't know, any sort of thing where you're like channeling into another spell, I always feel weird. It always feels weird to me because I always feel like I break early. So it's more of a gameplay thing trying to figure out. Um, but yeah, no, that's coming in. And then that's Manatee. That's massive. And along with this change, they have moved, like with the removal of Spirit of the Crane from the tree, they've moved some of that section of the spec tree around a little bit to make it flow or continue to flow the way it has in the past. So, um, but yeah, I mean, overall, Manatee good. Going to be a healing increase for us. Another way to proc 4 set and gives us some mana back, which we don't need right now. But I think into the future, into like next year,
Yeah. It will
when
be a
we
thing once
lose,
you no longer have the current 2 set.
yeah, exactly. So yeah,
Yeah.
Th-
It's, it is interesting. Like you mentioned, Mistweaver slowly getting closer and closer to how it played in like Mop Wad.
mhm.
Um, One of the best changes to Brewmaster in recent memory was the introduction of Celestial Brew, aka Guard.
Yeah, yeah,
Like the tools that Brewmaster have now, like the main like Stagger has consistently gotten less and less important over time. It's
uh
still
huh,
very important, right? It's way more important than it was in terms of like total kit now than it was in Mop, for example. The number on Stagger is just way higher. Um,
gotcha.
but it's still like we have Elusive Brawler, we have which didn't used to be the mastery, it was a different mastery.
Uh huh,
Actually Stagger was the mastery. And then um of course Guard, Purifying Brew. There was another brew that I don't remember that basically generated what is now our mastery.
uh huh.
And so it's like kind of the same thing, almost like, in some ways the reworks of the monk specs in Legion were small disasters.
Yeah, I mean, I know how. No, I didn't play the other specs as well as much, right? And even to this day, I don't. I mean, I don't play Windwalker at all. And like Brewmaster is like every expansion, I'll spend a season tanking Mythic Plus, maybe, right? And like
Yeah.
that's the extent of my Brewmaster experience. So, but for Mistweaver, it was to me that is the opening of Mistweaver and Legion, that first patch. Even to be fair, I would say even the first two patches of Legion, where that's the worst Mistweaver's ever played. Like it was a bunch of abilities that didn't fit together at all, and that like it's almost like it. I think we talked about it at the time. It's like they
Yeah.
ran out of time. Like
Yeah.
they like either they ran out of time, or it was like one of those things where they're like, all right, and I don't mean this derogatory. It might come off me, but it's like we're gonna let the intern design this class. And it's
Well,
like with no oversight. It's just like, hey, you just joined
they
Blizzard
scarred the
3 weeks
spec.
ago. Yeah, 3 weeks ago, you just do Mistweaver. Cool.
I
And let
mean,
us know when it's done.
I, I
So
I believe I know who actually did the Mistweaver design, but I could be wrong. But not an intern. It strikes me in some ways as similar to the Brewmaster situation, where it was more cute and interesting than actually functional and fun. And
mm,
like Mistweaver missed power level wise on the low side. Brewmaster, once people figured out that the cute and interesting was actually broken as hell, skewed high, very
yeah.
high, for years. And basically to make it not like either complete and utter trash or just like the best thing, in rate at least, like different deal in Mythic Plus, but in rate at
Yeah.
least. Um, they needed to change it because the cute and interesting was a little bit too one sided in power level, but it
Gotcha.
it in some like Essence Font. When has a healer ever had a spell like that? That's the kind of thing that maybe is a little bit like, what if cute and interesting, and
Yeah.
did not actually work out in practice.
No, no. And it's I mean, even knowing how that spell works, you're like, you have to plant your feet for 3 seconds as a healer when in almost any raid encounter that expansion, the majority of the raid damage went out while you were moving. Like
Yeah,
there was never, or there was like movement around you where like if you didn't get lucky and none of like what was it? What was the bridge boss in Nighthold? Crosis or Chronos or something like that?
Croesus, yeah.
Yeah, like if the swirlies didn't land on you, then you were perfect. You could channel Essence on to be great. But if they did land on you, then you were screwed. Or like Lady Aurelia in the courtyard, her arcane phase was literally it was like moving for orb drops, but there was a bunch of raid damage going off. It's like you're gonna get one channel off with
Could
Thunder
you?
Focus Tea,
When
and
did
you're screwed.
they change it to let you channel Essence Font while moving?
It was the patch after Nighthold.
Okay,
So it was
too
basically
little,
after
too
the
late.
first raid. Yeah, I mean, and at that point, like people had jumped off of it and gone elsewhere, and like, yeah, I mean, you also had like channel,
Obviously,
what was
soothing
it?
mist.
Soothing Mist channeled. It was free, tacked on the end, along with our mastery, but it was like no one ever casts it and then just lets it channel. So like in a raiding environment, or even in like a Mythic Plus, I don't know if Mythic Plus was a thing then, but in like a dungeon environment, you're not sitting there channeling essence or soothing mist on a single target as you're like running around. Like maybe you do it if you're like running from one pack to another,
I mean,
but like
Legion was a little bit
weak.
weird in that, like, first time Mythic Plus is around, but it reached the end where like you just had the blood decay and they just used their artifact ability and they gave everybody a ton of leech and then the DPS just leached. And you
Exactly.
you you maybe had a healer in order to like spot heal specific things. Um but they were not, it's not like Dragonflight where they actually do like real AoE damage, like they put real AoE group damage out that the healer has to respond to. It was more like this person got targeted by a random target spell that didn't get, or was unkickable, think of like pelters and things. Although those, again, at the high level, the tank got the hell out of dodge
Exactly.
and they just stopped pelting.
Yeah. So we'll see. I mean, it's been Mistweaver, I think is, I mean, I would say, I don't know about all classes, right? I think there's a couple of specs and classes that are in bad shape, but at least for monks and like for Mistweaver, I'd say this is the best Mistweaver's felt since pre-Legion. which is really cool. And I think Manatee just helps support that, like puts us, it gives us a little bit of that flavor back, and I think just from a power perspective, it's more powerful than the current option, so which is always good.
Yeah, I
But
mean
cool.
that's great. Like, I mean, Brewmaster also is in a great spot gameplay wise. So Monks on the open up, I have no idea what Windwalker is like right now.
I mean,
Absolutely no idea.
When I click into lounge, it's like delete the spec, and we're all terrible. So I mean, that's same thing Mistweaver Lounge is. So I'm assuming lounge isn't the best way to get your spec doing feedback. No, I mean, I think it's in general like I'm happy with the way that like Mistweaver has at least has felt this expansion, which is cool. We've had two wildly different playstyles. We started out with something very different than Clouded Focus, and now we're on the Clouded Focus kick. So it's been cool. But awesome. Oh, sorry.
I don't have. I thought about having something to add, and I was like, nah, I don't have anything to add.
Gotcha. Well, the only other final thing I want to say about the patch, and then I think that might be everything, is there is going to be an Eastern Kingdoms Cup coming up. So that launches, I think October 4th is the date. So I did not get to finish all of Kalimdor Cup. Definitely got distracted playing a couple other things, but
I have not even started it.
More dragon riding stuff is always cool in the old world. So so they are adding in Eastern Kingdoms Cup October 4th through 17th, probably similar event structure. Do a bunch of courses, get some currency, get some transmogs and stuff like that. So but yeah, more dragon riding. So
nice.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll do that this afternoon. I say that every time, and I'm not going to do it this afternoon.
Yeah, no, I am 100%. What am I doing this afternoon? There was something. What was I doing this afternoon? There was something I was going to finish up in WoW, and I forget what it is. I can't think of it off the top of my head.
Who knows?
Any event. Yeah.
But yeah, I think that is going to be it for the show today. Thank you all for watching and or listening. And if you enjoyed this podcast and you want to support it and the work that we do over at the Peak of Serenity, you can do that over on our Patreon at patreon.com/Peak of Serenity. And of course, come and join the Discord. It is the best place to go and learn about all the weird, wild tech for using Manatee optimally, or to shitpost about F1 in Brew Lounge.
Oh yeah. Well, actually, and it's extended now. You can also do it in Mist Lounge, or I guess Dark Lounge is the name of it.
Adam, Brew Lounge is better.
I think we've had this debate before, and you are
incorrect. I won.
Oh damn it! I don't remember the outcome. My brain's too old. Okay, fine, you win. But Mist Lounge, close second.
Sure. But that's gonna be it for the show today. Thank you all for listening, and we will see you next week.
Bye.